Continuing our narration of L.W. deLaurance's The Master Key. We are in Lesson 13, Exercise number 25. Concentration applied to reading. Read carefully a short story, and then write a summary of it. Or take a speech reported on the newspaper and condense it into half a dozen or so lines. Remember, you are to read both the story and the speech just one time each, noting as you go along the essentials of each. You will find that this exercise will make great demands on your concentrative powers. Excuse me. It demands keen attention and memory to a great extent, and with these the power of abstraction, so that essentials may be clearly marked out as you proceed. Remember, you cannot say that you really know a thing unless you can tell it or write it out. Now, if you fail in the telling or in the writing, it shows a weakness of concentration and the retentive powers of your memory. And therefore, your time has been wasted. If you are a student and wish to advance rapidly, tell what you know to a congenial mind. In this way, you will discover defects in your knowledge. You will find that in many points you lack clearness and definiteness. Even if you haven't anyone to whom you feel that you can talk to about what you've been reading or what you are interested in, don't be discouraged. Go into your room and imagine a friend sitting opposite you and try to tell him what you have read or what you are studying. This plan will reveal many a weak point in your knowledge and in your speech. Especially will it try your powers of continuity, that is, the power to finish as well as you began, to round up, as it were, your subject. You will find this imaginary conversation or exposition a magnificent concentration exercise. In the same way, if you imagine an audience in front of you, you will soon develop into a good speaker. If you wish to become a ready speaker, adopt the following plan. Write out several slips of paper, the name of subjects to speak upon. Your newspaper will supply you with plenty of topics. You should have some familiarity with the topics chosen. Now put your slips to one side and take one at random each day. Have your watch in front of you, and as soon as the seconds point to 60, the top of the minute, commence to speak upon the subject noted on your paper. You are to speak for 1 minute only. As soon as the time is up, you must stop. You must not make excuses as to inability or unfamiliarity with the topic. You must strike into your subject right away. Aim at speaking without breaks. Force yourself to say something. In time, you will learn to think quickly, which is the chief requisite in readiness of speech. Let's move on now to exercise 26. Still in lesson 13. Concentration applied to thinking. No man could be a thinker unless he can concentrate his thoughts on the subject matter before him. The ability to think clearly should be the endeavor of every man and every woman. A good way to develop this power is to take a verse out of the Bible or a verse of a poem or a proverb and to try to exhaust, or at least to get a rough idea of its meaning. To give an example, suppose we take the verse, "To him that hath shall be given, and from him that hath not shall be taken away, even that which he hath." At first sight, this appears ridiculous. How can anything be taken away from a person who has nothing? Now, on reflection, you are met with a counter-argument. It is impossible for a man to possess nothing, for no thing does not exist. Let's examine the first argument. How can anything be taken from a man who has nothing? Every man, by faith and belief in health, possesses a measure of health. Sometimes, indeed, so little that we may say he has no health at all. Yet if this person loses faith in the little he has, it means that even that little will be taken away from him. The principle underlying this verse is a psychological one. It means that unless a man, by having faith and belief, follows the laws that make for health, wealth, or any other desirable thing, eventually his power to obey the law would be taken away from him. Take success, for instance. Every man of whom we speak as a failure, possesses potentially the powers that would lead him to success. But if he does not, or will not, exert those powers by true faith, then in time they will be taken away from him. Try this exercise on a different verse or proverb every day, and you will find your thinking powers develop to a wonderful extent. You will gradually acquire the valuable power of thinking for yourself, a power which very few people seem to possess. In concentrating on thinking exercises as above, remember to sit perfectly still, to breathe naturally, and to avoid all strain. If thoughts do not seem to come to you, do not worry. Leave the exercise till another day. Do not sit at this exercise at first for longer than 10 or 20 minutes. Gradually extend as your power of thinking grows. Excuse me. Students should understand that the author is speaking here of thinking in a popular sense. There must always be a wide difference between such thinking and that of the trained thinker, one with a philosophical training in the niceties and exactness of language and literary subjects. So let's go to exercise 27. Concentration applied to thinking. This exercise will make greater demands upon you than exercise 26. It calls into play the retentive power of memory and requires keen concentration throughout. Take any book for which you is fairly difficult to understand. Any book which for you is fairly difficult to understand, and read it carefully for 10 minutes. Then put the book to one side. And for 20 minutes, think over what you've read. At the expiration of the 20 minutes, try to write down in your own words an account of what you have read. At first, if the exercise is absolutely new to you, you will find the thinking exceedingly difficult. First, there will come a feeling of heat. Next, one of strain and fatigue, consequent on your endeavor to reconstruct the subject in your own words. Following this will come mind-wandering, and you will have to pull your thoughts back constantly, as it were, to the process of reconstruction. The exercise is very similar in its physical aspect to that of lifting a heavy weight. You experience heat, muscle fatigue, and a feeling of letting go of the weight, all of which proves that both exercises, the mental and the physical, can only be mastered by degrees. This exercise in thinking is one that makes very great demands upon your concentrated powers. But you will find that if you persevere with it, the constant practice will soon develop your thinking powers. In other words, your thought power and memory will grow, just as your muscle power will grow by steady and careful practice. In the next video, we'll continue with exercise number 28, concentration applied to memory.